Aloha, and thank you for joining me in this video, Cognitive Distortion number 9, which is labeling and mislabeling. Now, all of our cognitive distortions, as I hope you can see, are very important to be aware about because it can lead to very dangerous behaviors. And that is no different with this distortion, labeling and mislabeling. And I guess the reason why I start off with that sort of preface before we dig into our definition is because I think of the climate that we're in currently, where every single time you open up Twitter, or you open up or you turn on the news, or you open up a website, you see words like racist, like misogynist, like retarded, like disturbed. And that happens when we label and mislabel, especially when we overlabel and mislabel. So as you can see, right, this labeling and mislabeling is really an extreme form of generalization. With that being said, let's get into the definition. So again, extreme form of overgeneralization. And this is where instead of describing an error that perhaps you made, you attach a negative label to yourself, such as I'm a loser, right? So something happens and you attach this negative label, such as I'm a loser. Let's also say that when someone else has behavior, right, that rubs you the wrong way, right, you attach a negative label to him or her. Instead of looking at the behavior in and of itself, you say you label. So he's a darn jerk or she's a darn jerk, right? Mislabeling often happens when you label, and it's describing an event with language that is highly colored and very emotionally charged, emotionally loaded. Now I'm going to read our distortion scenario for this cognitive distortion. Before I read it, I would like you to know that this distortion scenario is you sort of have to be in school, perhaps, and close to a graduation or a completion of something. So I want you to sort of envision yourself either being there, no matter how old you were, like think back to that time, how exciting, right, that graduation ceremony was, or think about that for one of your children or grandchildren. Okay, let's read the distortion scenario. So your administration at school tells you that there will be no graduation ceremony, and they give no reason. Okay, you were really looking forward to celebrating, and because of this, you feel blindsided. It really turns out, though, that they've been telling you these things for months. You just didn't pay attention. So you start to say to yourself that, oh my gosh, I'm a magnet for bad luck. And I'm so dumb that I wasn't paying attention. Oh my gosh, I always do that. You start to use very emotionally charged, bad language to describe your administration. So a couple of things are happening here, right? You're labeling yourself, and actually you're mislabeling, and then you're labeling and actually mislabeling, right, your administration. So again, very bad, charged, loaded language, very negative. And in that habit of labeling, you often mislabel. Again, think of the words that we use now to label, right? Racist, misogynist, retarded. Pretty soon you start to associate anything even remotely related to something that happens like this in the same way. And so you can see how that would be very, very, very negative. Let me try and give you a couple more examples. Let's just say you get scolded by your boss for not doing the job that they expected. You start to say, again, he's a jerk. He'll never appreciate my work. Pretty soon, nothing you do is appreciated, okay? Even though that's not the case, you see it that way, right? Because you're mislabeling. Or you start to say, or pretty soon you start to believe that he's always a jerk, no matter what he does. And then he can't do, or she can't do anything right. So you see how this emotionally loaded and charged labeling and mislabeling can cause you to label everything this in the same way. Let's say you're a teacher and a student blows up in your class. All of a sudden, he's emotionally disturbed. Pretty soon, every little behavior that is beyond what you call normal is absurd. And everyone has, quote unquote, an emotional disturbance. You can see how that mislabel would be very dangerous. Let me try and think of another one. Okay, a law doesn't go your way, or doesn't go the way you want it to go, such as the IRS adding 60,000 agents to look through your bank statements. Okay, so you look at that and you think, oh my gosh, no laws go your way. Pretty soon you are defeated and you feel like throwing your hands in the air, like there's no sense, right? No sense in working, no sense in living, no sense, just give up, right? And not that you necessarily go, you actually do that, but you can see how that habit of labeling and mislabeling can get you down for just a lot of wasted moments. Okay, maybe just a couple more. Let's say someone who works for you does something that you can't even fathom to understand. Okay, you're like, oh my gosh, something that you think really honestly is stupid and idiotic. Okay, pretty soon all people who don't do the job you want the way you want are lazy or idiotic or stupid. Okay, and you can see how that would be very dangerous, right? So this whole idea of labeling really becomes, you're assigning this label, but it becomes mislabeling because it's often incorrect. Because it's emotionally charged, highly colored, it's often incorrect. Okay, one more. You're a teacher, let's say, okay, and a child doesn't do his work for a few days. So you end up calling him lazy, okay? Not even knowing the circumstances. Pretty soon, all kids who don't do their homework are lazy. Pretty soon, every time this kiddo doesn't do something the way that you're expecting, he or she is lazy. And you don't look at other possible factors or causes for that behavior. And so again, you can see how labeling and mislabeling can be very dangerous. Honestly, I think in this highly charged, just political environment that we're in currently, especially because of, this whole C-19, we're getting out of that. I do honestly believe that labeling and mislabeling is happening on purpose, and it's causing a lot of strife and stress inside of us, whether we know it or not. So again, be mindful of when someone is labeling and or mislabeling. Be mindful when you are engaging in that kind of behavior. Okay, so how does that impact our thinking? Well, we did go over a lot of that, right? This thinking can make you feel depressed and hopeless. It's going to stop you from finding any kind of errors and fixing it, and then celebrating the fix. So in this scenario where the administration tells you, that there'll be no graduation, and you're using this highly emotionally charged words, right? You cannot stop and tell yourself, oh gosh, I should have just paid more attention. That's okay. I'm just, from now on, I'm going to pay more attention. I'm going to ask myself, is there anything that I can do to possibly change this? Can I plan another graduation for myself with the people that are important to me, right? Since this is the case, you're not even going to look for a solution to this problem because the language is so emotionally charged, so negative, so incorrect that there's no room for anything else. So you're not going to fix it, let alone celebrate it. Impact on yourself. What is that? You could, again, start to feel like you'll never get things right. You'll always be behind the ball, or you're always playing catch up. You will start to develop a pattern of blaming others for things that directly impact you instead of taking control, which you can. How do you fix this? Okay, now this in number 5, right? It's not gonna seem like it's connected. Give me a moment because I want to explain how this is very connected. Okay, so how do you fix this mislabeling and labeling and the problems that it can cause on thinking and just the feeling of overall self wellness, right? You need to be kind to yourself. So as soon as something like this happens, a negative situation where you want to lash out at either yourself or someone else and start labeling and mislabeling, just choose to be kind. Just relax. Be encouraging like you would to a good friend. So let's go back to our distortion scenario. Imagine this happens, right? Instead of have this emotionally loaded and charged um, reaction or response, you just start saying, okay, how do I fix it? I made a mistake. It's okay. We all make mistakes. Let me try and fix it. And then you start brainstorming ways to fix it. And you just be kind. If a good friend, said this to you and started saying, I'm such an idiot. I never pay attention. Oh my gosh, I'm such a magnet for bad luck. Look at what I'm going to miss out on. You wouldn't allow them to say that to you. You would if they said those things, you would say, you know what? You can't be perfect. Maybe you missed it. Okay? Hey, learn from it. Next time, maybe have the newsletter in your email. Remind whatever, right? Like look for ways to fix it. Just like you would encourage a good friend, do that to yourself. Okay. Number 6 is the activity. Okay, so name just one thing that you can do to be kind to yourself, or one thing that you do currently to be kind to yourself. Write it down in this small space, here, right below the number, or okay, write it down on the back page. One thing that you can do to be kind to yourself. I'll share a couple things that I try and do to be kind to myself. I'll get some work done. Like I'll write down a list of things to do, and I will, every time I get through maybe 3, 4, 5 things, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. And I'm going to look at those 5 things and I'm going to cross them out, and I'm going to have this feeling of accomplishment, and I'm going to allow myself that feeling of accomplishment. So that's one thing. Another thing I might do is to be kind to myself, right? Is I might give myself a break, right? I might go listen to a podcast or watch a part of a show that I wanted to watch, or go write something just for me, or maybe go outside in the yard and water the yard, things that I enjoy doing. So name those things. So the next time a situation like this arises, you already have a list. You have a list of things that you can do that'll help to facilitate bringing about and evoking that kindness. Okay, before we close this video, I just want to say that a lot of these things that you can do to just develop positive habits are found in the Project 28 workbook. If you go to the website at momilani.com and go to the Rise and Thrive workbooks, you'll see a list of workbooks there that you can just sort of go through and get a summary of, and if you find any of those interesting, go ahead and check them out. They're on Amazon. But Project 28 particularly has 28 days of just positive habits to change negative thinking and to develop positive thinking habits. I have that book and I'm always looking at it because it reminds me, right, of either where I was and where I've come, or it reminds me to go back and use strategies that I, forgot to use, or if I am going towards my default of being negative, how do I turn that around? That's a great resource, and check that out. Thank you so much for joining me in Cognitive Distortion number 9, Labeling and Mislabeling. Appreciate you very much for being here. That's it. Aloha.